spicy. Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me I have some more RPG horror stories. And by the way, a reminder, I'm still taking about your questions for the Q&A that I have going on the channel page. Also, I saw somebody asking a question about me and Mary, how our kids would look like if we had kids. I did ask her the question and we did agree on some stuff, but those answers are gonna come in at a later point. For now, we're gonna get some RPG horror stories for today. Player offers to have his wife do favors in the middle of the game. A while back, I, male, reconnected with an old work buddy, female fighter, and we started doing game night with her husband, male ranger, and other friend, male warlock. We decided to take up D&D after discussing it and finding that we were really enthusiastic about the idea. Unfortunately, I was the only one of the group who had played D&D before, and it was only for a few sessions with a group that quickly fell apart due to scheduling issues. The issue was who would be the DM. None of them were comfortable with it since they were completely new and I suffered from crippling social anxiety and agoraphobia, so I was not comfortable taking the reins. I reluctantly told them that I had a friend referred to hereafter as Buzzkill who might be willing to DM for us. Buzzkill was someone I had known since high school. He was someone who I really only liked in small doses because his personality could be a bit much. So when we needed a DM, I wanted the group that Buzzkill was not particularly reliable. He had a habit of saying wildly inappropriate or just flat out gross things from time to time. However, the group jumped on the chance to have a somewhat experienced DM. Buzzkill agreed to DM for us and seemed enthusiastic. However, after 4 months, we had only had 2 game sessions and a session 0. On the 3rd session, Buzzkill showed up drunk and high. It quickly became obvious that he had nothing prepared. He just talked in circles for an hour, while we sat there awkwardly waiting for a chance to interact with the world. Eventually, he more or less said, "Screw it and the campaign is over. We'll start a new one next session." Needless to say, we were displeased with the incident, so I reluctantly and nervously decided to offer to be the DM instead. They were surprised at my willingness to take the driver's seat given my mental health concerns, but they were all very encouraging. So I talked to Buzzkill and told him I had decided to try being the DM, choosing not to say that it was because of the way he ran the table. He still wanted to be a player, and we all thought it would be okay since we could do sessions without him if he didn't show up. So for my first campaign, I ran Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, and it went surprisingly well. As it turns out, I have a knack for DMing. Buzzkill took part in sessions here and there as we moved on to Dragon of Icespire Peak. He occasionally went on drunken rants about he and his wife being swingers, but we chose to ignore these comments. At one point, he started making inappropriate comments to Fighter, in front of her husband no less. Fortunately, Fighter is military IRL, and she shut him down with a look that will make even the bravest of men run for their lives. Later the next day, I texted Fighter to ask if she would like to tell Buzzkill not to come back. She was appreciative, but chose to forgive, saying that she had done worse things while drunk. Anyway, Buzzkill was only showing up to 1 of every 3 sessions, so hopefully he would just stop showing up altogether, and we could avoid confrontation. So fast forward to Buzzkill's last session. Over the course of session, he was getting progressively more drunk. I swear to God, this next part came out completely out of the blue. Buzzkill pulled out a crack pipe, and started asking who wanted to join him. I'm usually a very passive person, but I shut that crap down straight away and told him very sternly that he was not going to smoke crack in my apartment. I knew he had taken a lot of pills in his college years, but I was unaware that he had started on crack. He looks a little embarrassed, but put the pipe away. Oh my god, I can't even imagine. Just him at the table just pulling out a crack pipe. Yo, you want to do some crack? Good lord, what the hell? Not even 5 minutes later, Buzzkill once again interrupts combat. And again, out of the blue, he says, "If you guys want to make this really fun, I can call my wife over to play Hungry Hippos under the table for us." I've never heard it be described like that. I think I know exactly what he means. Oh my god, Jesus. We all sat in stunned silence for a minute. Finally, Warlock speaks up and says, "I have a better idea. All in favor of Buzzkill going home now?" Immediately, all our hands shot in the air. Buzzkill looked at us like we were being unreasonable and said, "Fine, if you all don't want to have a good time, I was just trying to spice the game up a little." To my relief, he packed up his things and left on the spot. I have not talked to him since. We all breathed a sigh of relief and collectively agreed that we probably should have done that sooner. Still feel bad that I was on the one who essentially brought him into the group in the first place. However, the rest of the group reminded me that I'd warned them about him before I invited him, so no harm done. Several months later, our group is still going strong and I'm still running sessions for the group. I find that putting quests and adventures together helps with my mental health even. As for Buzzkill, hope he gets help for his obvious alcoholism and apparently budding crack addiction. I don't care if you're a swinger, I don't care what kind of recreational activities you do in your free time, but don't bring that stuff over to the table, and especially don't offer up your partner to play hungry hippos under the table. Jesus Christ. It is a funny way to say it. There's a little bit of humor. Obviously, this is not a great story, and this guy sucks. Buzzkill sounds like a horrible person to have at a table. Extremely rude, disrespectful, and just pulls out a crack out of nowhere. Oh my god. He wants to spice up the game with crack of all things. Let's get to the next story for today. I need a little bit of a brain cleanse. Like a frog in boiling water, a tale of not seeing the red flags from a bad DM due to lack of experience. After binging pretty much all of Crispy's videos while working, I'm now keen to share the story of my first D&D game, and how only after I started DMing and started watching all the horror stories that I understood that the discomfort I felt was because of a crazy amount of horror story tropes, all in the same game. The characters in the story are the DM, the problem, his wife, problem, who I'll call a life cleric, and other players, including me. 8 total players. First red flag that I essentially just assumed was normal for a year. I get it, some people can handle 8 players and stuff, but I gotta tell you, it's probably gonna be a mess. I've tried 8 players. No, thank you. There's not enough time for me to divvy out to make sure everybody gets properly involved in everything, and everybody just kind of talks over each other, tries to talk over each other, and no matter how many times you try to control it, it's just, you've gotta be spread thin trying to make it satisfying. Running the combat for 8 players, unless they're fast, oh, it's gonna take forever getting every round done, dude. It's gonna take forever. The story begins about 2 years ago. I'd never played D&D, and I met a new friend who invited me to a new D&D game he was starting. The start of the game was okay. Session 0 for character creation and consent forms. Interestingly, no background on the setting of the world. This would become a pattern. We start out in a ship, crash, and quickly get tasked to go into a temple to retrieve something. The temple has a few floors. How many floors? About 5. Each floor has a new encounter and monsters, a few puzzles. It was an okay design. You know, this type of thing you probably think, oh nice, a dungeon, we'll go in, take a few sessions going through it, 4, maybe 5. Well, how about a whole year? Yes, it took a whole year to go through that dungeon. For a whole year? One single dungeon? Man, that would get boring. Why, you may ask? Very simple. 7 new players with only 1 experienced player, roll for everything, no descriptions of anything other than what is blatantly obvious. Want to see what the door looks like? No problem, roll perception. Oh, you have a passive perception of 14 as a ranger? Too bad, I don't care for passive skills. Roll low enough and you don't even know what's a door. How do you progress through a door that you don't know exists? No clue. Roll more dice. Maybe someone else will do something and roll a number that is good enough to progress. He wouldn't volunteer saying a piece of informational lore that is not behind a roll. And if that roll fails, no failing forward allowed. Use soft luck until you find something else to do. That sounds like hell. I'm sorry, but that sounds so exhausting. I can't believe you stuck around for a whole year. A year! Oh my god. Poor children. First problem, pacing. I now know that pacing is one of the most important things DMs have control over. Yes, it will take a while to decide to go somewhere, but if you put a party of 8 players in a dungeon with 5 levels and 4 to 8 doors on each level, how long do you think things will progress? He said he was experienced DM, but even I, having DM'd a couple of one-shots and a couple of short campaigns, know that this is absolutely crazy. He said at the end he expects us to have gone through the dungeon in about 2 months with weekly 2-hour sessions, i.e. he had 10 months to realize his plans were not going to plan, and adjust the rest of the dungeon to give us a good game. He chose not to. Well, at that point, that's the DM's fault, because the DM chose actively to hamper you guys continuously instead of, you know, speeding things along like a DM would, especially if people are getting bored. Being stuck in a single dungeon for a whole year sounds hella boring. That slog of a year being over, I still kept going to the sessions. Why? At that point, I signed my lack of ability to interact and do things that are cool to my character choices. Maybe I wasn't good at RPing yet, and my character was too difficult to interact with the world. Her being someone who was slightly recluse and too focused on her idea of justice, although her idea of it was twisted, so as to have a new character. It was at this point in time that the experienced player quit. I think he realized the red flags and took the break in the story as an opportunity to dip. A year, and then somebody decides to quit. I don't know why y'all stuck around for so long. Why a whole year? Why'd y'all stick around for a whole year? I'm actually mad at you for sticking around for a whole year, because even somebody that never played D&D would think this is stupid. My time is better spent somewhere doing literally anything else. Watching paint dry sounds more exciting than this, because if you can't progress further because you've rolled a low number and suddenly you don't know a door is a door, then what are you supposed to do? If you can't perceive the doors around you, what are you supposed to do? I created a Grung Artificer. Nice! That's where the frog part of the story comes in. He allowed us to pick a few magic items, and being a Grung, I chose the endless water for always being able to stay hydrated, plus 2 combat items. Her backstory was that she was afraid of death for her and no comrades, so she was supposed to be a support tank. I then crafted a character whose traits made sense with her backstory, while still making sense mechanically. We were using a point buy, so I put the points where that makes sense for my character. Her being an armor with a shield and using her infusions on herself at the level we were, 7, she sat at a comfortable 21 AC. The first time I received a pretty high hit and said that I didn't hit, he scolded me for min-maxing. I was pretty shocked. I literally ignored a full magical item just to have an item that allows me to be wet so I could be a cute frog, and I built my character using no homebrew or class combinations, just point buy and standard things that would get level ups. But I'll let that go. Thought maybe I should have gone for more roleplay, story-oriented things, so started trying to do more story stuff. Started roleplaying her interested in mechanics of death and describing what she looked like when doing things. Every time I would try to describe something in combat, or even just an interaction out of combat, the response would be, "So are you doing X or no?" And I'm like, okay, so I'm scolded for building my character coherently, and I can't roleplay my character without rolling dice. So I guess we're just supposed to keep rolling dice without caring what is affecting them? Flavor is free, but also flavor is so important to get into your character. Listen, if every character just has the same stuff all the time, and if the flavor is completely gone, then an Artificer A is same thing as Artificer B, because there is no flavor. Mechanically, yeah, there's flavor, and obviously mechanics matter when it comes to combat and such. Why would DM not support giving flavor to a player's character? Flavor is so important for making players connect with their characters. It's like one of the most easiest ways for a player to connect, because they can flavor how they do spells and stuff, or do activities, or what they're interested in. Flavor is free and is the most potent way for somebody to get into character. The entire time, another problem started bothering me. We've been playing for over a year. The life cleric hasn't cast a single healing spell. Through DM Fiat, she also gains 3 times as much gold as anyone in the party, and she is literally a main character in the story, as in her backstory is part of the main plot. Remember, DM's wife, and she doesn't know how any of the spells work, she doesn't track spell slots, and over 3 times have tried to say that she has essentially 10 times as much gold as she should have above her extra gold. I mean, her power is countered by her incompetence of using that power, but it's still annoying me given the comments I received about min-maxing. Oh, and the DM said that the campaign would not include any of our character's backstory. It would be a setting where our characters just go through the world and experience what is going on, which is fine if that's what you want for the game, but of course that doesn't apply to her. They would also have minutes of roleplay between her PC and other NPCs just showering her PC with praise. While if I try to say more than a few sentences for roleplay for my character, I had to roll or stop. Roll for what? Roll just to talk? Do you need to really roll just to talk in character? And of course, the wife gets a special treatment. The wife is the main character. She's the Mary Sue. She's literally the main character of the story. She gets paid the most amount of money. She probably has more magic items than everybody. And all the NPCs adore her, because of course they do. This DM sucks, and I can't, I'm upset. I'm upset you're stuck around for a year, and even through this, you didn't say, alright, I'm gone. Bye. This is when I started DMing. I learned that you're supposed to describe things to your players. I learned that you're supposed to let them do things that are inherently easy to do. I learned that you have control over every single thing in the world, and that all you need to do is to talk to your players and figure out how to have fun with them. I thought, okay, so maybe I'll suggest another session 0. Ours was over a year ago, and maybe we didn't set the expectations, and that's why our game is in such disarray. Maybe if we just have a conversation on how we'd like the session to go, we'll figure out a way that we can have all the fun together. So I talked to the DM, asked him to set up a session 0. His answer, or if your consent sheet has changed, you can just send me another one. Or if you want to create a new character, you don't need to do session 0. You can just do it outside of this session. I responded by trying to explain how we've played for over a year, so we're more experienced and know better how D&D works and how I think it benefits us to have the conversation. This goes back and forth a few times. He does not in fact benefit from the conversation and fails to understand that I don't just want to update my character or consent form and actually want to discuss the game and how to have fun together. He does not ever even mention doing another session 0 to the rest of the party. Of course, because he's having fun with his wife character and stuff, and you're just a side character that needs to roll in order to roleplay, which is really stupid. Why do you need to roleplay? I mean, some situations, yeah, if you're trying to deceive somebody or trying to intimidate them, but just to roleplay? To talk in character with other characters or NPCs? Why? Then we start doing online sessions primarily. Mostly use the theater of the mind, which remember, no descriptions aside from what you roll, and in battles, he whips out a gridded map and camera and draws with a Sharpie. The problem, this means we cannot position things ourselves, and he will just place things for us, and will sometimes just place things kinda bad, ignore what we want. It's also sometimes very hard to understand what is going on with his drawn maps and lack of descriptions. I mentioned that we could maybe use a simple VTT like Owlbear Rodeo to try to make things easier for us to understand and interact, at least by having a pointer and being able to move the tokens during battles. He refuses. His reasoning? He already has his maps and things he bought physically, so he won't do it because he already has it. In sum, it doesn't matter you are not enjoying this because I prefer it this way. Now that I mention this last sentence is probably the through line over all of it. Bingo bango, you found the answer. Also, why can't you do the VTT? Owlbear Rodeo is fine. Roll20 is fine. If you feel like putting an extra dosh and stuff in order to make it a little more fancy, Foundry is incredible. I know Crispy had talked a lot about Foundry and he stands Foundry, and I completely understand. I stand Foundry too. Foundry is just incredible for all kinds of games, especially D&D 5e. Why not set up some sort of a free VTT so that other players can play? This DM sucks. This DM makes me so upset. I feel exhausted with this DM's incompetence. It is at this point that the frog boils. I finally understand. It is impossible to have coherent fun in a game where there's no communication. How can the game be coherent if the GM won't simply step up and try to make sure everyone is enjoying their time and understanding the world? I retire my grung, or fear of death being too focused for a game where backstory doesn't matter and the GM can't direct the party if his life depending on it. I don't want to leave the group, and after all, they are people I'm okay being around now after a while. And if I stop playing, I'll likely stop seeing them. I create a new character. He's just a guy. He follow people around and try to have fun. No motivation, no nothing. He will fit better. Your time is better spent not playing this game. No D&D is better than bad D&D. As somebody who watches Crispy, I would think you should know this by now. It's like a common mantra for all kinds of these like RPG horror story VTubers or YouTubers, me included. No D&D is indeed better than bad D&D, and your time is better spent doing literally anything in the world, including putting together your own game with your own friends that it's not going to be with this GM. Honestly, I feel like you could totally put together your own game with a couple of buds, couple of friendos, use VTTs or whatever the hell you want to do, or in-person games and stuff. Teach people how to play, showing them what D&D should be like and how much fun you can have. Because it looks to me like you understand the fundamentals behind how to run a fun game. All the other stuff, planning and like maps and stuff and combat, you can figure out along the way. But you already have the hallmark of somebody who understands what DMing should be like. And I feel like you could totally fit the DM boots if you wanted to. I highly implore you, even if you don't DM, leave this group. It's just not going to be fun for you. It's really not going to be fun. You got to get to play this boring character that does nothing when you could be doing literally anything in the world that's way more fun than this. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.